Welcome back, folks, to another episode of 5-Minute Plant Families, or in this case, 3 families in 5 minutes. In this episode, we will be looking at what can be a difficult group for newcomers, namely the sedges or the Cyperaceae, the rushes or the Juncaceae, and the grasses or the Poaceae. The aim of this episode is to give you confidence in identifying families to engage on the next step of the taxonomic journey. In order to do that, we will be looking at the comparative characteristics and features of these plants in a nutshell. In this primer, we will be giving you an insight into the terminology of identification and diagnostic features so that you can begin that journey. Hopefully by the end of the episode you will have the confidence to distinguish to family level to begin the taxonomic journey proper. To give some idea of scale, in the UK, sedges or Cyperaceae, there are 200 species in the UK in 30 genera. The rushes or Juncaceae, there are 30 species in 2 genera. And the grasses are a phenomenal 12,000 species worldwide, with a UK estimate of between 160 and 200 species. If you take home one thing and one thing only from this episode, it is the following mnemonic. Sedges have edges, rushes are round, grasses are hollow with nodes open right up from the ground. On this matrix, we are going to systematically compare and contrast the features and characteristics of each of the 3 families. So folks, fear not, we will qualify the terminology and structures we refer to and provide examples using imaging. A few points. Whilst these are general principles, like any principle, there is always an exception to the rule. By far the most reliable identification characteristics are the inflorescences, which when taken with other characteristics increases the confidence and certainty of the ID. Stems, we will be looking at the shape, whether they have triangular edges or round, and whether they are solid or hollow. We will be looking at the sheaves, whether they are in fact open or closed, and ligules as to whether they are present or absent, and the meaning and definition of a ligule. We will spend some time looking at the inflorescences, that being the key differential in identification. Stems are straightforward, whether they are triangular with edges, as in the sedges, whether they're round, solid and spongy, as in the case of the rushes, or whether they're round and hollow, as in the case of the grasses. The next comparison to note in terms of the leaf sheath is that sedges and rushes have closed sheaths, and grasses on the other hand have open sheaths. The next comparison to note is that sedges and grasses have ligules. Rushes, on the other hand, tend not to. So, what is a ligule? Well, a ligule is a thin outgrowth found at the junction of a leaf and its leaf stalk, primarily in grasses and sedges. It serves as a protective structure for the leaf, and it is interesting to compare the same arrangement in dicotyledon plants, which are known as stipules. What we are looking at here are the ligules on 2 species of grass on the left and 1 species of sedge on the right, and as stated, they are notably absent in the rushes. Key features in ligules include the type, whether it's membranous, ciliate or absent, and the characteristic, i.e. its size, whether it's long or short, and its edge appearance. Critical to the assignment to families is observations of the inflorescence. In the case of a sedge, it has 1 fruiting body associated with the flower, known as the utricle, and 1 structure, bract-like structure, derived, known as a glume. Say again, 1 glume associated with sedge. If we are looking at rushes, we have a seed capsule derived from the flowering parts, and 6 segments, say again, 6 segments associated with the structure. If we are looking at grasses, we can see that there are 2 glooms, say again 2, associated with the floral structures. As we shall see, it follows that there is a reduction in form and function in the sedges and grasses, which is not the case in the rush, which contains a full flower with male and female parts. Having outlined the theory, we are now, using imaging, going to look at the floristic characteristics and the vegetative characteristics in each of the families necessary to drill down in this identification. Join me in part 2 to look at those floristic and vegetative characteristics necessary for identification. The first thing to note about sedges is the florets have separate male and female parts, unlike the rushes, which have male and female all on the one floret. Here we see a typical shot of a sedge, showing pictures of the glume situated beneath the urticle. In addition to the nature of the glume, the size, shape and beak of the urticle become important characteristics to look at when we examine sedges. Utricle refers to a thin bladder-like pericarp or seed vessel typically associated with carex. Or, in a nutshell, it is a small sac-like structure that surrounds the seed. Here on the left we see a utricle with a glume attached to its base, and on the right we see the tips of the utricle depicting the beak shape. In this comparative slide we see variation of the inflorescences of 3 species of carex and their associated utricles. With the stems of sedges, there is no guarantee of a tuberose bar, with a general variation on the theme, but in general always with edges. At the risk of rushing the presentation, we turn our attention now to the Juncaceae, where the inflorescences are arranged in orders of 3, namely 6 tepals, 6 anthers and 3 stigmas, and there may be 1 or many seeds per flower. And, unlike grasses and sedges, there is no reduction in form and function. As can be seen, the stems of rushes can either be solid with an airy pith, or they can be hollow with septums along its length. Here we can see the ridge stem and much denser pith in Juncaceae conglomeratus, which was used to make wicks for rush candles. We turn our attention now to the grasses, their inflorescence and their vegetative characteristics, and how these things come together in terms of a dichotic key. The inflorescence of these families are arranged in the same way as our larger flora, and this example is of a spike of the crested dog's tail. Here we see the inflorescence of a branching grass with a spikelet notably at the end of the branch. Spikelets will always ever have only 2 blooms, but may have multiple florets in the spikelet. The number of florets in the spikelet is therefore an important key differential. We will return to counting florets for the purposes of keying in a moment. But first, what exactly is a glume? A glume is one of a pair of dry, membranous bracts at the base of the spikelet of grasses. Confused? Fear not, let's do a virtual teardown. If we remove the glooms from the base of the spikelet on the left containing multiple florets, we are left with the typical inflorescence or floret of a grass. The 2 most important structures in a grass floret are the lemma and the paleo, which enclose the flower. In the case of grasses, the reproductive structures don't have a major role in identification. Just a quick aside on awns. Awns may develop from the top or the base of the lemma, or they may develop from the glume itself. So, just to clarify, what are the lemma and the palea? These are structures that enclose the flower in grasses. The lemma is the lower bract, whilst the palea is the upper bract. Together they protect the reproductive parts of the flower. At the risk of going on and on, These structures are largely composed of silicon, which has two roles. First of all, dispersal on the fur of animals, and in some case by twisting the seed into the ground when it comes saturated with water. As part of differential keying, it may be necessary to measure the size of the bloom and the length of the ferret. In this slide we see a spectrum of bloom size in 3 species, from the largest on the left to the smallest on the right. We turn our attention now to the vegetative characteristics of grasses, which also are useful in the overall scheme of differentiation. If you recall, we touched upon key ID factors, such as whether the ligule is membranous, ciliate or absent, and the size and shape of its edges. Other vegetative indicators include the presence of auricles or ears, which are the inflated leaf blade which is embracing the stem. They can be hairy, they can overlap, or they can be absent. Other identification points include nodes, their presence, absence, intervals, colour, etc. A node being where the leaf sheath gives rise to a leaf blade. We return now to the concept of inflorescence in the grass flowers and the concept of keying the number of florets on a spikelet. Many new to the grasses often find counting florets on a spikelet difficult, which can greatly be aided by the use of a magnifying loupe. Loupes can be 10, 20 or 30 times magnification, both plain or illuminated. In this exercise we begin a notional key where we first sort the grasses into spiked and branched, the spikes being directly attached to the stem and the others being branched away from it. In this sample we are going to examine 4 different spikelets on 4 different species. Next function in our key, we can count the number of florets in the spikelet. In this particular example there are 4 florets. So on the remaining spikelets from the slide above, on the small spikelet we have 3 florets, on the medium spikelet we have 4 florets, and on the large spikelet we have 8 florets. Some keys will ask for average spike length, and they are graded as follows: less than 5 mm, between 5 and 9 mm, and greater than 9 mm. Some keys may ask for the presence or absence of awns and where they originate. Some keys may interrogate as to whether the ligule is a membrane or ciliate. Other keys may look at the auricle to see whether there is crossover or whether it clasps the stem. Notwithstanding other characteristics such as the width of the leaf blade, the texture or ridges on stems, and of course the colour of stems. Here we see the distinctive stripy pyjamas recognised by many people on the stems of Yorkshire fog or Holcus lanatum. I hope this episode has made you confident in identifying the 3 families. The sedges are Cyperaceae, the rushes are the Juncaceae, and the grasses are Poaceae. So folks, I hope you can join me in the up and coming 2026 season, where we will identify and key some of the common species of grasses. Well, thank you very much for watching, folks. If you have enjoyed this unenviable task of covering 3 families in less than 15 minutes, and you have either liked or enjoyed or found this video interesting or educational, please like and subscribe to the channel so that it will become a success and we can bring you more in the series.